This episode is brought to you in part by the National Restaurant Association.
Welcome to Foodable Weekly. Here we are at the National Restaurant Association. It's day 2. Right behind us, a huge packed house. I've got Hal here with me today, talking a little bit about ServSafe. Also Mick and David representing ServSafe and the National Restaurant Association. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so we're going to talk ServSafe. Mick and David, of course, representing ServSafe. David, let's go a little bit into you and what you do for ServSafe and the National Restaurant Association.
So at the basic level, I'm the product manager for ServSafe. And what that means is I am a market expert and I understand what the market needs are and that those get translated back into the product.
So you're working with the operators themselves and kind of looking at what their demands are and needs, or?
A little bit. I'm also looking at what's the latest science, what are the latest regulatory needs, which Mick helps on with that, best operating practices. So taking all of those components and making certain that they get translated back into the product.
You know, we had an interesting conversation yesterday with the cybersecurity team. It was interesting how they kind of compared ServSafe and how far it's advanced to what cyber needed to do. So restaurants really spend a lot of time and effort in ServSafe, you know, protecting their consumers, you know, doing a great job. Regulatory side, Mick, what do you do for the organization?
Well, I'm a senior manager for program compliance, and so I'm involved in helping our members through some of their regulatory pitfalls, shall we say, concerns, making sure that they understand what the requirements are for manager and or food handler certification, and maybe even acting as an ombudsman sometime between a member and their concern and the corresponding regulatory agency. Okay,
and then you brought Hal on. He's more of kind of an advocate, been in the operations business with Chick-fil-A, now doing some consulting in the industry. So, Hal, what are you kind of focusing on when it comes to the ServSafe side?
Well, when I was at Chick-fil-A, I was a director of food safety, working very closely with Mick and David and all the others in the industry, learning about how to apply food safety principles into a large chain. And I felt like after many years of very successful ServSafe implementation, where we actually worked with NRA and made a custom program that we took ServSafe and then applied Chick-fil-A specific products to teach them like allergens and things that are specific to our product line. But I felt like I'd learned so much about the industry, I felt like I needed to help the industry, and I couldn't do that within a company. So I started my own company to do that, and now I'm working again with the NRA and all my friends, you know, in the industry to help them ensure food safety.
Yeah, good deal. So food safety is pretty much the cornerstone of our industry when you look at really all the operators, from small to multi-billion-dollar chains.
Yeah.
This is really the number one thing that our business has to worry about. So obviously, David and Mick, you guys are really in charge of that. Let's talk a little bit about the culture that has to be in the industry to kind of deal with just the issue of food safety.
One of the things Mick and I and even Hal will talk about is to serve food safely takes commitment from the top down.
Right.
You know, to your point, whether it's somebody with just a small food cart and they're on the street corner, up to the largest multinational chains, that commitment has to come from the top down. And it is, you know, recognizing that without that commitment, they're not going to be in business.
Yeah, absolutely. Mick, on the legislative front and the regulations, obviously food safety is utmost security for public health in general, but from the operator standpoint, what are some of the things that they need to be looking out for, you know, in the coming future or maybe currently in terms of
Well, that's a great question.
Big deals?
Actually, many of us are just back from the Conference for Food Protection, which meets every 2 years in the interval between the issuing of a new food code. And really out of that week-long working meeting comes tomorrow's food code, you might say. And something came out of this one that I think we should all be looking out for in the next iteration of the food code, which will be in 2017, and that is that every person in charge will need to be a certified food protection manager.
Oh, really?
Currently, the food code in most jurisdictions requests or suggests one certified food protection manager per establishment. Now, there are some jurisdictions where they've expanded upon that and they require a CFPM present at all times. But the food code only requires one currently.
Yeah.
Going forward, I think if we were to bet a nickel on it, we would see that the next food code will have the requirement for every person in charge to be a certified food protection manager.
So would that extend up to the executive offices? Potentially, or mostly just on site?
Well, on site.
Okay.
Now, in a true culture of food safety, I would argue, and I think David touched on this, that you really want to have that level of education and awareness all the way through the organization from the top to the bottom.
So a good pipeline of that. Hal, when you look at the operators, what are some of the common mistakes that you're seeing happening in the industry that we can really curate or correct quickly?
Yeah, I think on average, a culture has to be infused with educated people that care about the culture, so the brand. And I think, starting with the top, like Mick had said and David, you need to have everyone understand what you're doing and why for food safety, but down to the certified food safety manager who's managing the day-to-day operations for safety, to the team member, the employee, that they have the knowledge base of doing the right thing when no one's looking, right?
Right.
And so with high integrity, a culture actually is built by management principles that start with, in the store level, the owner, operator, franchisee, his managers that are, they're the person in charge on a daily basis, and then the employees that are always understanding the risk and doing the things they need to be doing. So one risk that's pretty huge, we've heard a lot about it in the news recently, is a team member coming to work with an infection like a norovirus, and because they need to work and they want to, may not tell anybody, or they may have no more symptoms, but they had symptoms yesterday, and then they contaminate food with their hands without washing hands and using gloves and things like that. And then I think sanitation and cleaning is still a big challenge. You probably go into restaurants and see the red bucket and the rag. I like to call it a rag. It can be used safely if it's maintained in a sanitizer solution, but what oftentimes happens is they get so busy they will use that as a way to clean and sanitize without actually using cleaners and sanitizers. And so there are other better ways to do some of those things with innovation to improve cleaning and sanitation within the restaurant.
Right. The challenges, though. All right, so you've got obvious pitfalls that are occurring at the operations level. Obviously, we've seen some pretty big things in the news recently with companies like Chipotle that had an issue. And are there things that you guys in the ServSafe system that can help educate, top down of being prepared for? I know you can never be prepared totally, but just things that you can do steps-wise that would really initiate a great fostering program of food safety. Anything that you guys are working on around that?
The food safety in and of itself is not really rocket science.
Right.
I mean, it's not difficult.
Just good practices,
It's
right?
good practices. And in reality, you're looking at 5 different issues that the CDC recommends as risk factors to try and mitigate that.
All right.
It's finding an approved and vendor, supplier.
Right.
Employee hygiene, which you just hit on.
Yeah.
Cross-contamination control, cleaning and sanitizing. And then 2 different things dealing with time and temperature. One is cooking and the other one is holding it at the right.
Yep.
So those steps are easily at the restaurant level. I think what's contingent, though, is ensuring that there is a system, a personnel management system in place to help enforce those. Maybe a company can figure out a way of incentivizing to good practices.
Right.
But also tracking those good practices. And if you can't track it, you can't change it.
We've touched on the indispensable need for buy-in at the highest level, the C-suite or the owner-operator. We've talked about food safety management system to control the risk factors. These are critical components, but I would add one other, and that is the importance of building positive relationships with your regulator. There persists an us against them mentality,
right,
vis-a-vis the health department that comes in to inspect your restaurant. And I can tell you from direct experience that a crisis is not the time to be exchanging business cards for the first time with the regulatory authority in your jurisdiction. You want to proactively reach out to that community, because at the end of the day, we are, and when I say we, the industry and the regulators, we are partners with a common purpose.
Right.
And that purpose is to protect the dining public. We want to build our brand, protect our investment. They want to protect the public health. We can do that together. And when you partner and you establish these relationships, it goes such a long way.
Yeah.
To their point, especially Mick's as it relates to the relationship, the FDA describes an existing culture called active manager control, that it would be almost like if you have a pool and you have children that swim in that pool, you had someone out there like a lifeguard kind of watching to make sure they didn't dive in the shallow end and did certain things on a regular basis. May even monitor it and check it to ensure that if you own the pool, no one could be hurt, right? Active manager control is a process where you have certain standard operating procedures that are based on the food code that you might have in the restaurant, like cooking temperatures properly, hand hygiene, washing hands before you handle ready-to-eat foods, those kind of things. But if you don't monitor it, you really don't know whether it's happening or not, unless the health inspector comes in and sees it, right? But if you have an active program where you monitor every day just the top 5 risks, like is this being cooked properly when they cook the chicken? Is the person washing their hands when they come out of the restroom and go back into the kitchen? Is someone actually ensuring that no one's working sick and checking that, right? All those little things that could really prevent an outbreak of a foodborne disease can be managed on a day-to-day basis with technology within a few seconds. To me, I'm a strong advocate that in order to achieve a culture of active manager control, you need to have some means of monitoring and making corrective action.
Well, I think those were 2 great takeaways for this conversation. Definitely love the proactive aspect of getting involved with your local inspectors and the organizations, and definitely the kind of those pre-steps that you can take. So thanks guys for stopping in today here on set.
You bet, our pleasure.
Thank you very much, Paul.
It's our pleasure.
Great to be here.
All right, for you guys out there, of course, stay tuned here on Foodable Weekly. We will be continuing our coverage here at the National Restaurant Association show through the last day. We're moving 2 more days to go. This is, of course, a big event for the NRA and the restaurant industry, so stay tuned right here.